Bingo. Welcome to the coaching call. We have some great suggested topics today. We're going to lead with rentals. We had a broker that is new to the business and was curious how to talk to landlords. So we're going to go over the whole picture of what it looks like to deal with landlords and being tenant rep. I am a big believer in working with both, especially as a young broker. It's a great way to build your pipeline. It's a great way to build your database, and if managed properly, will most likely turn into long-term buy-sell business. When I was a young broker, I just look back at my history from like 2005 to 2010. I was averaging between 8 and 12 rentals a year. And they would help fill the void, right? We would, and I still do rentals, right? I'm Blaze and Elise and Jane and everyone on this call knows we do rentals. They help fill the void. They help give the service to the client, and that's what we're here to provide. So if we were like, sorry, we don't do rentals, they would go elsewhere, and one, we'd lose the commission. Two, we would potentially lose the long-term business of that person, and that is detrimental to your business. So whenever anyone asks, do you do rentals? Yes. And if you personally don't want to manage it, there's definitely people in the office that will help you and get you through that transaction so you can maintain the relationship. How to talk to landlords. Landlords can be pushy. They often feel like they're kings of the world because they own the real estate and you're there to serve them. And I totally understand that. We do need to take the upper hand and help give them guidance and help educate them on the market conditions. When you're going to talk to a landlord about whether it's one unit or if he owns a 3 or 6 unit building, best to be prepared. And what does that mean? Market conditions. Know what kind of units you're getting into. If you're looking at 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom, you obviously know the address of the property. Get as much info from him as possible. Front end research helps you be informed and helps you do research, which then leads to a more productive conversation and helps you be a lot more confident in your delivery. So let's just use, for example, a 2 bedroom in Logan Square. You can go and look in the MLS what rentals have rented in the past year, what the condition of them looks like, and there'll be a gamut. They'll run from 1,500 to 2,000, and you can let him know that, yeah, this is great. If you want to deliver this product at $1,500, here's what it would, and your product looks like this. That's what you're going to capture. Do you want to do some updates? Paint the cabinets, put some countertops in, update some fixtures, whether that's kitchen faucets, light fixtures, easy fixes that are cosmetic that could probably take a week or two if you coordinate with the right contractor. It will capture more rental value. So education for the landlord and for yourself is critical. So that kind of covers high level what it looks like to have a tenant or landlord representation agreement in place and working towards that. Really go in with the confidence of knowing what the market conditions are and really what the delta is between a unit that's in rentable condition, but probably capturing low rent to high rent and everything in between. And you're going to be able to flush that out right when you walk in the door after you've done your research. And don't be scared to suggest updates. People want to know that you are confident in your abilities and that you have the skill set to make recommendations. Another thing you could talk about is the RLTO. Definitely suggest that people do not take security deposits. We really suggest people take non-refundable move-in fees. It's talked about all over the place. You can go down the rabbit hole on the internet. It is highly suggested that you do non-refundable move-in fees. Make sure landlords know that they need to rekey every unit and just walk them through the high level minutia of what it looks like. We do suggest that they start the renting process while the current tenant is in place, so you don't lose any rental income, right? You don't want a tenant moving out April 30th and then you don't rent it till June 1st. You're losing an entire month of rent, and that messes up everyone's ROI, everyone's cap rate. So be proactive. Once you build that relationship and you can talk about this while you're pitching the landlord, let them know that, hey, we're going to rent 123 Main Street Unit 1. And let's say it's an April 1st start date. 60 days before the expiration in 2024, we will reach out to you and let you know that that tenant is up for renewal in 60 days. And if you don't secure a new tenant, we'd like to get, or if you don't secure a renewal, we'd like to get a new tenant in place. It's super easy to manage that. When you do the lease, go into your Google Calendar and 60 days before lease expiration, contact John Smith, who owns 123 Main Street, Unit 1. See if tenant is renewing. This type of diligence and this type of practice is really important to build your database, build a following. Most landlords that have one building, two buildings, know other people that have other buildings. If they see you being this proactive, this diligent, you're going to get referrals. Additionally, you can reach out to that tenant. And if you're reaching out to the tenant and you say, hey, it was great putting you in 123 Main Street. You're up for renewal in 60 days. Do you plan on staying in that property? Or can I help you rent a new place? Or even better, are you looking to buy? You can go and invite them to a new home buyer seminar. I strongly suggest agents do that. And we can talk about what that looks like, whether it's virtual or in person. But you have to be diligent about your practice. And this is really one of the big pieces. And I'm glad Jeannie asked about this, because this was a big factor in how my business grew, right? You do 10 to 12 rentals a year, and those, get into bigger numbers every year. You do 10 years, that's 100 people in your database that are your client and are happy with your service as just a tenant rep, and then 100 landlords potentially that you've worked with. So you can build a really strong database. Remember what I told you in the first call. Everybody on the to line of an email is fair game. So I was saving emails, even though they weren't my direct contact, they had worked with me. They had worked with me in some facet, and they knew I was a professional. They knew I was detail oriented, and they knew I delivered clean, concise emails. I always had, I lived up to my promises. If I said my tenant was going to move in and pay rent, like, we did it. So no matter what side of the deal you're on, build the relationship and reach out to that person. You can talk about commissions and all sorts of things when you're dealing with the minutia. Once he's agreed to work with you, you can go down that rabbit hole. But we typically charge 1 month rent to work with the landlord. And if there's a tenant rep, a buyer rep in place, they get 50% minus a nominal transaction fee that you can reduce. So it can be a lucrative business. Rentals in the city are, anywhere from $1,500 to $4,000, $5,000 on the norm. So definitely figure out how to work that into your business model. I think that covers most of tenant rep and the rental question. Do you have any questions, Jeannie? Are you on here? April? Anyone?
Yes, sorry. My question is, how does the commission work on rentals?
Sure. Similarly, it will be published on the MLS. If you're a tenant rep, that means you're working with the actual tenant. It will be published on the listing, and that will say half a month's rent minus $200 or something like that. And if you're representing the landlord, you charge a full month's rent to be the landlord representation. Sometimes, I would say 60% of the time, 70% of the time, we get that full month's rent. The other times, 30, 40% of the time, you would have to pay a tenant rep half minus $250. Does that answer the question?
Thank you.
Yep, perfect. Anybody else have questions about rentals? Again, I really think it's an integral part of any new agent. They can seem like they're labor intensive, but it's really about building the database and keeping busy, seeing property, learning how to be a buyer's agent, a selling agent. It's very similar. Cool. Great topic. Again, work it into your deal flow somehow, some way. There's a lot of people on Craigslist that used to be very popular. I don't know what they're using now, but they would repost properties, and we could talk about that offline. If you're really interested in being landlord rep, let me know. There's some gimmicks out there, and Blaze and myself and Elise had worked with some agents that do this. So reach out and DM me, and we could talk about it. The next question was from Dave. How do I become a listing broker? And I wish I had the perfect answer. The thing I tell most brokers, and what actually happened with myself as I looked at my career, buyers turn into sellers. They just do. And what that means is most clients that you're going to be working with are going to be your contemporaries. And as a young agent in your, late 20s and through your 30s, most people are buying their first property. So you really can't help them sell anything because they haven't bought it yet. So that's what buyers turning to sellers really means. So manage your database. I will beat that to death. Make sure you're taking care of your buyers and make sure you're continually checking in on them every year. You have a follow-up plan where you have a relationship. There's tons of scripts out there where you can be of service to any buyer that's, in your database and long term. That's one. Now, there's also tactics if you're like, I'm not waiting for them to be a seller. I need stuff now. Great. I love that. So we do encourage cold calling, lead pond calling. You're going to get inbound leads through that system. Door knocking is an old school method that is tried and true. It is absolutely labor intensive, but there are a ton of stories out there where agents canvass an area that they live in and they literally old school door knock. Little dodgy in the city. I'm not sure that people will answer the door. And if they do, you're probably going to be looked at like you're crazy. But in the suburbs and surrounding areas, it's not uncommon to have that happen. A more efficient way to canvas is really farming. And that means picking a geographic area and farming that area, building a methodical 3 to 4 time a year postcard method of farming, partnering with a lender so they can carry some of the costs, and really being an advocate and an informative broker in that area. So what that means, a lot of people will look at listings in that area and say, this was just listed, just informing people or sending them a postcard that has all of the things that are happening in that neighborhood or township, the fairs, maybe it's a movie night at the park, anything like that. You can kind of aggregate into a mailer and send that out. It works. It's a long play. I did it in Logan Square and I picked up a really good client, 2 actually, that had multiple buildings. But farming works. I didn't keep up with it because I just started getting really busy, but I love the farming game. A lot of real estate brokers in the city will farm a particular building that they live in. And I know Dave is doing that. So keep up with that. It is a long play. Social media. We will talk about this again and again. Being the specialist in your area. If you want to do $1 Million Monday, you can go and make a listing appointment for any new listing that is available in your area that you're targeting and have a video, right? Most of these suburban area homes are on lockbox. If it's not, you have to schedule with the broker, but you can video that property, put it on your Instagram. It can be a teaser. It can be a 20-second video tour of just the kitchen. Figure out how to add value to your sphere and they will continue to follow you and then ask you questions, which is what ultimately we're looking for, interaction. There are a couple agents in our office that have built relationships with developers. Julia, I know you have relationships. Cheryl has some really strong relationships. This is a value add proposition. If you want to go down that rabbit hole and start really focusing on developers, drive the neighborhoods, see who's active in your neighborhoods and who's in your area, and build a relationship with them. And what that looks like is present them opportunities, present them land, go down, the street and see who's selling property, what's on the MLS, what's on the private network. A lot of times they will know what's on the MLS, but a lot of times they will not. If their agent that they're working with currently is getting lazy or complacent, and isn't really doing an analysis of a property that you think is of value to that developer, dig in, send them an email, lob a phone call out to the development group and say, hey, I've worked with other developers in the area. I want to present to you a property that I think makes sense, have the analysis ready. And again, we could talk about what that looks like, but there are ways to be proactive. I've literally done every single one of these things aside from door knocking because I do live in the city and I just was not comfortable knocking doors. If it was the suburbs, I think I might have done it, but I never knock doors in the city. So I'm all about the honesty game. Any questions about what it looks like to be a listing broker and how you attack that market? Cool. I know Dave couldn't, I don't know if Dave's on this call. That was his question. So he'll follow up with me.
I do have a
April,
question. Do you usually use staging for new listings? Like when I worked with a developer, it would be, just a ready to list condo, but no furniture. So I did use renderings I worked with a few architects on that, but sometimes people, just they want to come in and see the space and imagine how they would be comfortable in it.
good question. Pre-construction, obviously, we're not going to do staging because it would be trashed. I love renderings. I love virtual staging. They've come a long way, and I think it really helps people visualize, like you said. Once the property is complete, if it's any type of significant development, like even 3 units, I would stage at least 1. I don't think any developer is going to pay to stage all 6 or all 8 units, and honestly, it doesn't make sense. Pick the unit that you think is in the sweet spot for most buyers and absolutely stage it. If they fight you on that, let them know that you'll help carry that cost on the back end. And what that means is if you're charging the developer 5%, you would get 2.5%, and there's 6 units. Tell them that for every unit that you sell, you'll take $500 off of your commission to help fund the staging at the end of the game. We obviously don't want to put money up front. We're brokers. We don't know if we're going to end up selling that development or if our listing appointment or our listing agreement will expire. But give them some incentive. Show that you have skin in the game. Be a collaborative broker and help them understand that you think staging will be so important that I'm willing to give up some of my money to help fund this project on the back end. But yeah, we stage everything. Blaze and myself and a bunch of brokers on my squad have done multiple developments, and we always stage at the end of the day. We actually have one of our stagers coming in, I think in March or April, to do a video chat about the benefits of staging. So that will be really cool for you guys to watch. We're big fans. Any other questions about listings, selling? I'm going to talk quickly about market confidence and what it looks like on a day-to-day basis, answering questions from buyers. Everybody needs a place to live. Long-term buying is always a win. There are 3 ways to win at buying. One, you own the property, you can modify it, do whatever you want. You have the principal reduction. That means when you're paying your mortgage, a portion of that actually pays down the interest, pays interest, and the other portion pays down the principal. That is critical to homeownership. That is how you build equity. Secondly, you have appreciation. Long-term, looking at any real estate chart, property values increase over time. Fact, always will be the case. Third is the tax savings. The United States government gives any homeowner that is paying a mortgage a homeowner's exemption that will add value to that property, because it basically means you will be credited about 1 month's mortgage payment on your taxes. You can write off all of your interest on your tax return. So if you're paying $10,000 a year in interest on your loan, you can write that off of your income and have that 30% of the $10,000, which is about $3,000 a year in savings. It's a very real number. Those 3 numbers, or those 3 bullets, make homeownership a win any time of the year. If your buyer thinks they are a forecaster or a genie or some sort of market guru, great. I deal with those people all the time. I always ask them to tell me what's going to happen in the market in the next 3 years, and nobody ever knows. It's impossible to forecast the stock market, the real estate market. All we know is long-term, it is an upward trajectory, and it always pays to own your own home. Will you maybe pick a year where it's a little higher than the other? Yes, but homeownership is a long play. We're not trying to time the market. We're trying to find a home for your family where you're comfortable and where it makes sense for you economically for the next 7 to 10 years. That is how I always suggest buyers look at a purchase. When you're sitting on a buyer consultation, my goal is always a minimum of 7 years for homeownership. That's when everything starts to work. That's when all of the numbers and all of the principal reduction, all of the appreciation, everything works. If they come back to you in 2 or 3 years and want to sell their home, it's going to be hard to make money. The transaction costs are high. you might not have appreciated, more than 2 or 3% annually. And if you do your commission and transaction costs, it all gets eaten up. So really let your person know that this is a long play. We're not timing the market for any particular day or year. We're really trying to find a place that works for you long-term in today's market. Historically, in a recession, real estate has always done very well. And people will always invest in their home before they invest in potentially even moving. So there is a lot of good things that happen during recession for real estate. If people aren't buying and you're an investor, rental rates will go up. And if rental rates go up too high, which is kind of where we're at right now, the renters will be like, hey, why am I renting when I can buy this at a more affordable rate? And you can look at the buy versus rent analysis on any property or any like property. And that math is pretty simple. You would basically take a like property that's for rent and say, okay, that's $2,500 a month to rent. It's $300,000 to buy. What does that look like at the end of the day with interest, mortgage, taxes, all that? Oh, it's $2,400 a month to buy it versus $2,500 a month to rent it. That equation works every single day, every single year. And there's always people looking at that, economists mostly. And that's what really moves the needle on pricing. So right now we are very level. It's very buyer renter friendly. So you can rent a property for almost the same as what it would cost to own it. And when that gets out of skew, that's when demand starts leaning towards the other way. So April, honestly, I've never sat in an appointment and told people that the market is going to go up or you should wait. I am always ready to buy. And that's how you always have to deliver the message that it's always a good time to buy a home, and explain to them that this isn't a timing situation, because historically in the past 20 years, there have been 2 years that the market has gone down. So if you use historical data, good luck telling me 2 out of 20 years that the market's going to be shit and we're going to get a better deal. I don't know how you forecast that. If you have an example, April, throw it out there, because I always love getting into this debate with people, and I do it all the time. But tell me if you had an instance, let me know.
I have not had an instance, but I just anticipate, somebody saying something, and then I don't know how I would come back. But what you said makes complete logical sense. That being said, not a lot of people approach things with logic.
All true, but you should also follow it up with mathematics, and that makes people look at it and scratch their head and be like, oh man, like that makes sense. We're here as an educator. People are coming to you because they, one, trust you. Two, people buy maybe 2 homes a year. In your career, you're going to do massive amounts of transactions versus the average consumer. The real estate broker will never go away. It has changed. It will continue to change. We will never go away. For people that think they're experts and want to save $1 and work with Redfin, fine, good for them. Historically and financially, we know that they don't get as good a deal as working with a full service broker. There's going to be people out there. There's going to be people that use discount stockbrokers. Great. We will never go away because people find value in full service. End of story. And I'm super confident in that. I actually got a little sketchy in like 2005-06 when Redfin started making their presence. And I was like, whoa, what's this going to change? And I was like, no, this isn't changing. People need us. So again, April, education, keep asking these great questions during these coaching calls, because they are going to give you guys the tools and the confidence to talk to your clients and give them a perspective that I have of 20 years and thousands of deals, and you need to help deliver the message to your client. So I love it. Keep firing away. Market confidence is going to always be an up and down thing. I was talking to Kyle yesterday, and it can be frustrating in a market where inventory is so tight and you're dealing with a buyer and you're trying to write offers quickly and you're trying to assess value and inventory is really thin. I've been on the other side of the market where there's a ton of inventory and there's still plenty of buyers, and the buyer is seeing new inventory come up every single week. And what do? they wait. And they're like, nah, Matt, we're going to wait till next week. There's going to be more inventory. We're going to wait till next week. There's going to be more inventory. So you have to play the game in education and ultimately put your client in a position where they need to make a decision. And that's what we're there to do. We have to be like, okay, you've seen 20 properties. 15 of them have been very similar. Top floor, 2-bed, 2-bath, roof deck. They're all trading in the 400 to 425. Which ones are your top 3? Like, what are your top 3? And then you get them thinking, and you have to engage them in this thought process. Otherwise, they will not make a decision because it's hard. It's hard to make a decision on buying a $400,000 property. So you're there as a coach. You're there to help move them along. I am not super pushy, but when a buyer sees 20, 30, 40 units and they're all getting really similar and you're like, holy cow, am I going out with John again to see the same unit? It starts to wear on you as a broker. So you have to help, and it's wearing on them too. They don't know it, but it is wearing on them. So you have to push them along. And we'll talk more about what that looks like if we get into that market. But now it's really just about getting out and seeing things and making good offers. One thing, any other questions on market confidence and how we talk about that? Cool. I had an in-person coffee meeting with somebody, and I have not done a lot of those since COVID. And I walked away from that with a total respect for the in-person meeting. And I was talking to Kyle about this yesterday. It really gave me a lot of confidence in building relationships when you're sitting in front of somebody versus the screen. I don't know what happened, but everyone's defense goes down. Everyone gets a little bit more honest. Everyone shares a little bit more. And it was so much more genuine. So I actually challenged Kyle, and Kyle, I'm going to rephrase that. I told you 1 coffee a week, and my wife was like, that's aggressive. Every other week, I want every single broker to schedule an in-person meeting with either a past client or someone you think who is going to be a referral source. It's intimidating, but this is how you build your business. And an in-person coffee is a 15 or 20-minute coffee that will help you learn who that person is and help them learn who you are. It's not a hard sell. You're not there to say, hey, I work on referrals. Who do you have for me right now? It's really a genuine conversation about getting to know someone. And I'm telling you, I walked away from that meeting feeling really good. And I'm actually implementing that into my own life and my own strategies. So I challenge you guys. And I told Kyle, I think yesterday, start with someone that's easy, right? Go and have coffee with your favorite lender, have coffee with your favorite insurance broker, and then we'll start building that in person into past clients, into prospective clients. Those are a little trickier and a little bit more difficult to, attack and really walk in there with confidence. So start on the easy scope and build your confidence. But I'm telling you, the value of that in person was mind-blowing. One other thing I want you guys to do, I love audiobooks. I think I finished 20 last year in 2022. And I start my morning, I wake up and I'll listen to an audiobook for 20 or 40 minutes, whatever time I wake up before I work out. And I'd say, I'm not going to share my full, book club nonsense with you guys because some of them are embarrassing, but I do add a lot of self-help and real estate and coaching books in there. One of them I think you guys should check out is Your First 365 Days in Real Estate. Give it a listen. I think that it's a good book, and I think it gives you a perspective that is humbling and will also kind of put you on the right path to understanding what it looks like to be a real estate broker. You can get that book if it's your first year or your 10th year. You will still appreciate it, I promise. I just personally started Never Split the Difference. Also a really great book on negotiating, not only negotiating real estate, but negotiating in your everyday life. This guy, the audiobook is read by an FBI profiler. He's fantastic. I absolutely love this guy. I mean, I love all my audiobooks. So and when they're over, I'm like, damn, that was good. Am I going to find one as good? And I always do. So keep digging into those audiobooks, self-help or whatever you're into. I add a little rom-com in there once in a while, but that's my guilty pleasure. And enjoy it, right? The coaching is everything. The learning is everything. And it's going to help you guys get to that next level. It's helped me immensely. I just love the banter in some of those books. Some of it I actually laugh at, and some of it I really bring into my day-to-day life. Any questions about today's coaching call? I think we've covered a fair bit of topics. Cool. Getting some applause. Appreciate that. Yep. I'm glad you guys were all here. Honestly, don't be shy. I know the open platform and asking questions on this might be intimidating, but you guys have been great so far. If you're not comfortable, you can DM me, set up a personal meeting. I'm always available. So thanks a lot for joining, and I will see you next week.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Matt.
See ya.
Thanks,
Bye.
Matt.
Bye,
Thanks,
guys.
Matt.